We've learned of even more instances where Colorado's been quietly helping immigration agents, despite the state law limiting that cooperation. Denver's mayor makes a big speech tonight as he fends off calls to turn off the city's license plate reading flock cameras.
We say flock off.
A congressman says ICE broke federal law over the weekend when they wouldn't let him inside to see what's happening in the detention center in Aurora. And a former state legislator is charged with a felony for faking a letter of support during an ethics investigation. It's kind of a shady night around here, but hey, it was a hot day, so we'll take it on Next. The state of Colorado has been giving up information on Coloradans to immigration agents and Homeland Security. So there are two laws signed by Democratic Governor Jared Polis. They're supposed to block cooperation with ICE unless a judge requires it or there's a criminal investigation. Our Marshall Zellinger is here after just learning how Colorado was helping ICE before a state employee sued to stop it.
Kyle, we've asked different state agencies for requests they've received from ICE and Homeland Security, requests that ask for information about Coloradans that Democratic lawmakers think they've protected with two laws signed by Governor Polis. We just found out in the last 30 minutes the state has willingly shared with Homeland Security on 3 requests earlier this year. Here are the 3 requests the state complied with from Homeland Security, what they asked for, and what the reason was given. In February, Homeland Security asked for employment records about one business in the state, and the reason given is, quote, ongoing investigation regarding human trafficking and smuggling, along with narcotics trafficking. Colorado's Department of Labor and Employment confirmed just a short while ago it shared the information requested. In a second February request, due to an ongoing criminal investigation involving human trafficking, Homeland Security asked for employment records for specific employees at specific businesses. The state also complied. And in March, ICE asked for employment records from a specific business, seeking names and wages for people that business employed, and that reason given was just an HSI investigation, meaning Homeland Security. The state complied with that one. Last month, a state employee successfully sued Polis to prevent sharing information with ICE regarding a request that ICE sent in May, and the state is only supposed to share if there is a judge's order or a criminal investigation. Kyle, we got these subpoenas through an open records request. I was also supposed to get the email responses between the state and Homeland Security to see how they commented, like, hey, we're glad to share this information with you, or hey, what's the investigation about? For some reason, those emails did not get sent when I got those subpoenas in about 30 minutes ago.
Is it as simple for ICE as they just declare something's an investigation, the way Michael Scott declared bankruptcy in that episode of The Office, and it just becomes a thing that Colorado has to cooperate with?
When the state employee sued Polis and it went to court, the judge reviewed the subpoena that he was suing over, and even the judge said to the state, there is clearly not a criminal investigation that would require some other documentation or perhaps even questions from the state about what's this investigation really about. Do you have any more documentation? That's why we've asked for the emails to see if the state even asked any additional questions.
All right, well, we'll wait for those. You know what episode of The Office I'm talking about, right? Where Michael's, I declare bankruptcy. You know what I'm talking about.
I'll say yes.
You know, the people know what I'm talking about. Marshall, thank you. Denver's mayor faces calls to turn off the city's license plate reading cameras as the mayor prepares to give his big State of the City address tonight. Progressive advocates and some on city council don't buy what Mayor Mike Johnson told Next last week, that he thinks that immigration agents can be effectively blocked from using that camera network.
We have to say that people have the right to privacy, people have the right to freedom, people have the right to move without their government monitoring their movements.
We cannot be doing ICE's dirty work here at the local level. We are hearing from our community right now to turn flock off, now and today.
The mayor and city council were on the same page earlier this year when they agreed to hold off on a contract extension for the flock camera system over concern that ICE could get at them and use them to get around Colorado's law limiting cooperation with immigration raids. DPD and dozens of other police agencies in Colorado use those cameras to photograph millions of license plates a month so they can track suspects accused of crime or find missing children, things like that. Those cameras have never been popular with civil rights advocates like the ACLU, who worry about too much government surveillance. And now the wider concern is ICE getting access to those, as we have shown they did in Loveland. The cameras are still up and running right now in Denver. Mayor Johnson told me he thinks that the camera system can be secured against use by immigration agents. Are you confident that Denver can establish a way to keep ICE out of that system but allow you to continue to use it for crime fighting?
Yes, I'm 100% confident. We know Denverites want, if your car gets stolen, for us to be able to track it. If heaven forbid you have your kid in the back of a car and it gets stolen, you want us to be able to know right away where that car is. That's critically important. We have to keep those cameras up. And I'm 100% confident we can do that in a way that keeps ICE out, and we've already done that. We've now made the changes so that no one outside of Colorado can access the database. It's shared within Colorado. And within Colorado, if you want to access it, you got to tell us exactly what criminal charge you're looking for. And if you lie on that, we can prosecute you and put you in jail. And so I think we believe there's a way to do both, to both get public safety here and protect people's privacy.
So ICE is not supposed to have direct access to those cameras, but we have recently reported here about a workaround they found in Loveland, where the ATF came in and ran searches on Loveland's system on behalf of immigration agents. So as the Trump administration drastically ramps up deportations, it is also reducing transparency into that process. When Democratic Congressman Jason Crowe tried to make one of his regular oversight visits to the ICE detention facility in Aurora over the weekend, he was turned away. He told our Angela McCall that's a violation of federal law.
When stepping into the ICE detention facility, he didn't expect to be turned away.
And for the first time in over 6 years, I was denied entry.
Democratic Congressman Jason Crowe tried to make an unannounced visit on Sunday.
The law says very clearly that members of Congress must be provided immediate access to these facilities. And yesterday, during my attempt, the administration violated that law.
Crowe is citing this public law, 118-47, that says nothing in this section may be construed to require a member of Congress to provide prior notice of the intent to enter a facility.
And the reason for that is because around the country, when members of Congress would announce or say in advance that they were going to come to visit, things got cleaned up, they got changed. We noticed changes that had been implemented just in the last 24 hours. So that's why these unannounced visits were so important.
The law passed in 2024, but now in 2025, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE say Crowe needed to give at least 7 days' notice, a policy that seems to contradict the federal law.
And every member of Congress should want to get into these facilities to make sure that their constituents and the people that they represent are not being pulled into these facilities without due process.
Crowe says while the Trump administration prioritizes detention and deportation, this is the time when accountability needs to happen.
It has become substantially harder to do basic congressional oversight.
In a statement, ICE says it, quotes, needs to maintain security protocols to promote the safety of staff, detainees, and the local community, and that the congressman's request did not comply with the mandatory 7-day notice, adding that Crowe's office was told on July 15th that they could not support a visit to the facility.
I mean, you can understand how the whole point of showing up is to show up without telling people that you're coming. I mean, ideally what? He goes in, he gets information, and then he kind of relays it to the public and relays it to other people in Congress?
Yeah, so he does these basically unannounced visits, and then he also has a team that goes into the ICE facility with more planned visits. They create what's called accountability reports. And some of those reports over the last several years were using data that ICE would just voluntarily provide or the facility would provide. That information is not as readily accessible, and so many of these reports in the last 6-ish months have gone uncompleted.
All right, Angela McCall, thank you very much. Another week, another lawsuit between the state of Colorado and the Trump administration, this time over new rules for several federally funded programs. The Department of Health and Human Services announced earlier this month they are changing a decades-old definition of public benefits in order to restrict states from using federal funds to serve non-citizens. That impacts services like community health centers and Head Start, which combined serve around 30,000 Coloradans. Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser joined more than a dozen attorneys general suing to stop the changes. They claim the feds didn't follow proper procedures. The Department of Justice has subpoenaed Children's Hospital of Colorado. The Trump administration is investigating hospitals and doctors who provide gender-affirming care for teenagers. Spokesperson for Children's confirmed that subpoena today. They wouldn't talk specifics. They said they're still determining how to respond. The hospital insists it has never performed gender-affirming surgeries on people under 18, and they say they stopped providing surgical care for patients older than 18 back in 2023. Earlier this year, the hospital temporarily paused non-surgical care, stuff like hormone therapy and puberty blockers. That was after a Trump executive order threatened their federal funding over that care, but they have since resumed it. Each week, your generosity, your word of thanks microgiving makes life better for other Coloradans somewhere in our state. And most recently, Your Giving campaign last week raised more than $35,000 for the Children's Diabetes Foundation and their Helping Hand program, where they assist families with the cost of treating kids' type 1 diabetes. It can be very expensive care. Your Word of Thanks Microgiving has now done $15 million worth of good across our state, and we will do it again on Wednesday. Send me ideas of nonprofits that are making an impact in your community, big or small. Email next@9news.com or text next 303-871-1491. A state legislator booked it out of the Capitol to avoid an ethics investigation. Well, now she faces a felony.
I think it's tempting to say what's going on right now to explain these high prices, but really that story is a long-term story.
Have you seen meat prices lately? Beefy. And don't expect them to drop like eggs did. Former Democratic State Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis now faces a felony charge related to the ethics investigation that forced her out of the state legislature. Jaquez Lewis, who represented Longmont, has been charged with attempting to influence a public servant. Fellow Democrats at the Capitol were investigating claims that she mistreated her staff when they say she fabricated at least one letter of support from a former employee. Jaquez Lewis then resigned. Those charges were filed by prosecutors in Denver. She told me at the time that the fake letter that was turned in was a mistake. It was not supposed to be submitted to the legislature. The charge she faces, that's an F4, that's a real one, carries potential prison time as well as a possible fine. I contacted Jaquez Lewis late this afternoon and did not immediately hear back. There has been another settlement of a lawsuit over election rigging claims in Colorado. This time, the election denier cutting a deal over his claims is Randy Corcoran, the former KNUS Talk radio host, lawyer for the Colorado Republican Party, and Republican National Committee man from Colorado. Corcoran pushed claims without evidence that Denver-based Dominion Voting Systems rigged the 2020 election against Donald Trump. Corcoran was sued by a Dominion employee named Eric Coomer. He was named as the guy behind the supposed election rigging plot. Last month, a federal jury in Denver found MyPillow guy Mike Lindell liable for defamation and ordered him to pay more than $2 million for similar claims. The settlement amount in Corcoran's lawsuit was not disclosed in court filings. Firefighters made good progress over the weekend against the fires that are burning tens of thousands of acres on the western slope. The South Rim fire, burning in Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, is now about 30% contained. It's burned through more than 4,000 acres after a lightning strike started it, forced the evacuation and closure of that national park. Firefighters say the fire behavior has slowed down quite a bit at this point. More than 500 first responders have worked it either on the ground or in the air. The Turner Gulch and Wright Draw fires are burning close to each other near Gateway in Mesa County. Turner Gulch is currently more than 15,000 acres. It's about 1/3 contained. The Wright Draw fire is a lot smaller. It's 466 acres and it's about half contained. Some good news today. CDOT was able to reopen Highway 141 and some pre-evacuation orders were lifted in that area as well.
Fire danger is top of mind with temperatures today in the mid-90s and a warm weather trend that will basically last the week. Although we've been tracking some heavy showers in the mountains and on I-70, but almost too much of a good thing in some areas because the storms are very slow moving today. Temperatures 95 are high in Denver, 100 in Sterling. Cloud covers brought these numbers down a little bit. We're tracking storms moving from the southwest to the northeast. We had a flash flood warning near the Chalk Cliffs area near Chaffee County, outside of Buena Vista for heavy rain there. No mudslides reported, but flooding is certainly possible with the 1 to 2 inches of rain these storms have been bringing. A severe thunderstorm warning out just outside of Springfield till 6:30 tonight. This one might have a little bit of hail in it as it is tracking toward the northeast right now over rural areas. Not much rain in Denver's forecast tonight, but I think tomorrow things will be changing. Slight risk for storms that may be a little bit stronger late in the night tonight into the wee hours of the morning. Fort Morgan out to Sterling, but the storms are kind of skipping right over Denver, and then they're going to redevelop to the east of us later on. Tomorrow, there's a little more available moisture, so I think we'll see some rain from storms, even though the severe threat is low. Sometimes too much rain all at once, especially in the burn scar areas, can be a big problem. We've cooled back to 87 in Denver now. We drop into the mid-60s overnight. Your 7-day forecast includes the chance of rain Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And notice Wednesday and Thursday cooler in the 80s. Back to the 90s as we dry out on Friday, and then close to 100 degrees for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday too.
Colorado's new wolves have expensive tastes, eating more livestock than Coloradans approved in reimbursement funds, about double what voters said yes to in 2020. Colorado Parks and Wildlife says the state has spent more than $8 million so far on the program in total. It was initially supposed to cost $800,000 a year. CPW says the initial costs were for the Range Rider program that helps to protect livestock from wolves and to do quote-unquote extensive public outreach. CPW also says they have spent more than expected to compensate ranchers for lost livestock. CPW is now working to pull in even more wolves from British Columbia. State regulators are forcing Colorado's coal plants out of business. Well, not if the Trump administration has anything to say about it. And hey, a hot new political issue just dropped. As soon as we stop talking about the price of eggs, now it's beef that's getting spendy. That's next. The Environmental Protection Agency is threatening to get involved with Colorado's plans to close coal-fired power plants. You know, Colorado's been cutting these deals with utility companies for years to phase out the plants, but now the EPA says that violates federal statutes. The 6 remaining coal-fired power plants in Colorado are all set to be closed by 2031. The utilities that run them have spent years planning how to transition to cleaner energy. It's part of Colorado's long-term plan to cut greenhouse gas emissions. But in a decision published last week, the EPA argues the state doesn't have the power to force plants to close by a deadline. The agency also argued the closures would be bad for the reliability of the power grid. The EPA's ruling does not overturn Colorado's regulations, but it could give power plant operators more flexibility if they want to keep coal plants running past the state's deadlines. The price of eggs, remember, became kind of a hot political issue for a minute, first for the Biden administration, then Trump's team when he took over. Beef prices could be next, but experts tell us those increases have been a long time coming. Consumer Price Index data show the average price for steak and ground beef hit record highs last month, more than 10% higher than this time last year. We talked with Nathan DeLay. He's an ag economist at CSU, and he told us there are several different factors. Some are recent, like a parasite hitting herds in Mexico and limiting imports, and other factors are more long-term.
Shrinking cattle herds throughout the country due to persistent drought. That leads to fewer calves being born that are sent down the supply chain to create the beef products that we buy at the store shelf.
Colorado's egg price problem was relatively short-lived as farmers first killed off and then rebuilt their flocks, the avian flu. DeLay says it's going to be harder for herds to rebound because it can take a heifer roughly 2 years to produce its first calf. We are back here with your feedback next. Thank you. A bunch of you wrote in wondering about the results of Governor Polis's online survey about whether to build his $28.5 million pedestrian bridge on the front lawn of the state capitol. Because I was under the impression that the voting was going to cut off overnight, like at midnight. Jim says, so where are the results of the vote on the Capitol Bridge? Well, the governor's office sent out a note today saying that people can vote through midnight, like coming up overnight tonight, so voting is continuing right now. This was a spirited debate in our newsroom. When they say midnight on the 21st, is that the time that's behind us or in front of us? You know where I stand on that. Philip suggested that Word of Thanks focus on food banks, given the economy and cuts to benefits. I think we're going to continue to work on hunger around Colorado, and we welcome your suggestions.